can record now. All right, so good morning again. So we're going to, this morning, what we're going to do is that we're going to look at systems of production. So this is our topic, systems of production and responses to oppression. Now, the first thing, what do we mean by systems of production? Anybody who have done their reading before the class? Or if you are maybe a student from POB or you did principles of business, when you talk about production, what are we talking about? No business students here?
What was the question, sir?
What do we mean by systems of production? When you hear the word production, what comes to mind?
Products.
Products, yes.
Process.
Process. Now, what do we process? What do we? So, in other words, and both of you are correct. When we talk about production, it is the process of providing goods and food for domestic use and for trade. But in the Caribbean, we have various, or we would have used or still continue to use various systems of productions to produce food to use locally at home and also for trading. All right, so those are the two main reasons for systems of production: for domestic use, at home, and also for trading. Now, there are various systems of productions that we have used in the Caribbean, and these are some of them. So one of the ways in which we would have produced goods in the Caribbean, especially with the indigenous people, was through slash and burn. That was a method of production, how they would have produced their food, a farming techniques. Another that was implemented was the Encomienda system. Another system of production was slavery, African slavery, plantation system, indentureship. So all of these, ladies, are systems of production. So if you go into the exam and they ask you about systems of production, these are what they're asking you about. Now, one of the main things about this topic is that systems of productions were very oppressive. These systems, especially Encomienda, African slavery, plantation, indentureship, very, very, very oppressive system. So all the systems of production that were used were very oppressive to the Caribbean society. All right, so that is one thing that we need to take away from it. Now, I wouldn't say slash and burn is oppressive, but slash and burn has its pros and cons. Anybody know? Tell me some of the pros and cons of slash and burn. You know what is slash and burn, right? Because we would have looked at this.
A con is air pollution.
So you are saying that is a con. So a con is air pollution, right? Which is true.
So a pro would be it's an easier way to clear land of the farming.
A very easy way to clear the land. That would be a pro.
And also, sir, when this technique is done,
yeah,
bacteria sometimes not able to grow back plants.
Yes, certain plants are not able to grow back there. And another thing, when it comes to slash and burn, anybody ever, I'm not so sure, but when I was growing up, they used to use slash and burn in the cane field. And every single time they burn the cane field, I always see some black stuff coming down from the sky, and if you
Oh,
have
yes,
white,
sir.
that still happens.
Well, where I live, yes, sometimes.
It still happens. All right. So when I was, in fact, when I was growing up in Spanish Town, that was that issue, because you used to have, once it start to, you see that all of those black stuff, the remnants of the burning coming down. If you wash your white clothes, oh my, dog really eat our supper, right? Because that is just not good. It's not good, and especially to breathe for a lot of the persons with asthma. They have problems with the burning. And also, I remember one time they were doing slash and burn in the country. So my mother and father, they live in the country. Well, they have a house in the country. They don't live in Jamaica, but we have a house in the country. But one day, lady, somebody said doing this slash and burn method where they're trying to clear the land and they light the fire. And I'm telling you that it come over to our land, and it also was going onto the man's cane field. So guess what they had to do? They had to call the fire brigade, because sometimes the fires are, you cannot control the fire. So these are some of the cons of slash and burn. And the truth is that the government is trying very hard now to eliminate that practice, slash and burn. But in that agricultural practice, we know it has its pros, because one of the pros is that if anything is in the field, any snakes, any rats, any insect, that is going to cause a problem for your plant, then you know for sure that it will get rid of it. Also, it provides the ashes provide a type of fertilizer for some of the plants that are food that you're growing. So there are pros and there are cons for this method of production. But we still use it today, especially farmers in rural Jamaica and rural parts of the Caribbean still use slash and burn method today as a way of agricultural technique, right? Now, the next system that happened in the Caribbean is what we call Encomienda. Most of you might know about the Encomienda system, but before I go to the Encomienda system, let me give us historical background of the coming of the Spanish. We would have dealt with this already. So we know the Spanish came to the Caribbean in 1492, and they would have established settlements in the Caribbean. Now, once they established settlement in the Caribbean, the first European country to get jealous of the Spanish was Portugal. And Portugal got very, very jealous. And so what they did was that they complained to the Pope, who was head of the Catholic Church, because both Portugal and Spain were Catholic countries. So Portugal go and complain, and Spain said, listen, we found the land, you are not getting any of this piece of land. So the Pope said, all right, let us sign a treaty. And they signed the Treaty of Tordesillas in 1494. And so the Pope divided the Western Hemisphere into two parts. So this is the Western Hemisphere. All of here is the Western Hemisphere. So all of the land to the east, which is here, belongs to Portugal, and all of the land to the west belongs to Spain. And you realize that Portugal just get a little piece of land. Today, this country right here is Brazil. Right here, if you look on my cursor, where my cursor is, it is Brazil. So that was how the world was divided. Then now, the Spanish settled, and once they settled, they saw the indigenous. They settled with the indigenous people, and so they are saying to the indigenous people, listen, we can live together peacefully. That is their treaty with the indigenous people, right? So this is what is going to happen. You, the indigenous people, you're going to give us, the Spaniards, tributes. You're going to give us tributes in the form of gold. So every gold that you have, you bring it to us. Silver. Once you plant your goods, if you produce, you need to give us your produce. Provide us with food supply, shows where the water is, where the river, and also you're going to give us labor, right? In return, so this is what the indigenous people is giving to the Spanish. In return, this is what I am going to give you, the indigenous. This is what the Spaniards are going to give to the indigenous people. One, I am going to protect you. I'm going to convert you to Christianity. I'm going to give you shelter, right? And I'm going to provide food and clothing for you, because we come and we see you in all of these different feathers and all different type of cotton all over and paint up body. No, you need clothes to wear. We will clothe you. So that is what they are saying. So that was the system of the Encomienda. The Encomienda, the Spanish settlers, so that they are going to protect, care for, Christianize the indigenous people. In return, the indigenous people will give them all the gold, silver, food supply, show them the topography of the land, and work for them. Do you think this system was fair? Was it a fair deal?
No, sir.
Why?
Sir,
Go ahead,
because like,
Gilbert.
sir, all they're going to do is Christianize them, and it's not like the Indians needed to be Christianized because they had their own religion. So
Yes.
them claiming that, oh, we're going to Christianize you and you have to repay us with all these things, like they have to repay them with so many things, gold, work, and all that. I think that's not balanced at all.
And you are so correct, Gilbert. And you know what is the other thing that I find was very rude of them, or what we could say disingenuous, is that how under the heavens you come to my land. You came here and you saw me, right? It's my land. I had no threat, and you promised to protect me. Did I tell you that I couldn't protect myself? Why provide protection? You're going to provide me with food? Is it that my food is, your food is better than my food? Is it that your religion is better than my religion? How is it that you come and you want to take over the land that we had? And so this is going to create quite a lot of problems, right? So that was the system of the Encomienda. Ladies, CXC love to ask about this Encomienda system. Please know the Encomienda system. Now, the Spaniard is called the Encomendero, right? So the person who received the Indians were called the Encomendero. And once they received a piece of land, so they came and they segregate the land and divided the land and gave to our Encomendera Spanish and gave them some Indians to work for them and all of these different stuff. That system of distribution, of partitioning of the land is called repartiamento. All right, so please note these words. They are very, very popular on the paper one, the multiple choice. All right, next.
Sir,
Go
question.
ahead.
What did they need protection from exactly? Like a group? What were they saying they were going to protect them from?
I would love to ask you the same question. They just said that they're going to protect them, but I believe what they really wanted to say was that we are going to protect them from who? The Spaniards, because the only problem that the indigenous people had was the Spaniards. That was the only endangerment that they had, the Spaniards. They were the endangerment, not even the Kalinagos were the endangered them. So this protection that we are talking about is very vague. Very, very vague protection. How is it that why you're going to protect them? And you ask a very significant question that if you get an essay on this in the exam, you can elaborate on it or critique the system by saying who they were going to protect them from. Very, very important question. Any other comment on this, ladies?
Me, sir.
All right, good. So we know for sure that this system from the outset, from we look at it, we know that this system is very, very oppressive. This system of production, because one, why it's a system of production? Because it is a system in which they are going to force the indigenous people to mine for gold or precious stones and to provide food. So some of the golds and the food, they're going to transport them back to Spain for trading. And so that's one of the reasons why it's a system of production. Now, ladies, this system was very, very oppressive to the indigenous people because one, there was the imposition of European culture on the indigenous people. Language, they imposed their language, the food, their religion on the indigenous people. And that's one of the reasons why it was oppressive. Another thing is that it led to the genocide of some groups. Some groups, for example, the Tainos, were completely decimated as a result of the treatment that they would have faced under the Encomienda system. Diseases, quite a lot of diseases the European brought quite a lot of diseases here in the Caribbean, and the indigenous people had no immunity to these diseases. So they had things like smallpox, malaria, syphilis. Those are diseases from the old world. And they are bringing it to the new world. And so that is going to cause a lot of the indigenous people to die. In fact, there's a historian by the name of Alfred Cosby who said that the main reason why the indigenous people, there was almost the genocide of the indigenous people was because the diseases killed most of them. No, that is the historian's perspective. He has his argument and his source and evidence to support his argument. Other historians argue and they say, no, it's not only disease alone. Disease play a role, but not a major role, but you have other things. For example, they would have overworked them, they would have killed them. They would have raped them. And so that would have led to the genocide, the near genocide of some groups. Also, destruction of property. They came, they saw their villages, and they destroyed it. They destroyed their food, the ground provision, the provisions, the trees. They destroy their huts, their culture, destruction all over under the Encomienda system. Females were raped, and also they had sexual relations with some of the females that produce another group of people that is called mestizos, right? So widespread abuse was under this system. They were overworked. They were punished harshly. And in fact, the Spanish played a game in which they killed the indigenous people in playing the game. Look, for example, like a country like Jamaica that has no gold. Jamaica has no gold. And they had the indigenous people, the Spaniards had the indigenous people here mining for gold, and up to this very day, there's no gold. You can imagine searching for something, and up to today, you can't find it. But on islands like Hispaniola and Cuba, they had deposits of gold, so they found deposits of gold. But for example, in Jamaica, no gold was here, and most of the Caribbean countries, for example, our islands that they would have settled, the early settlement of the Spaniards, didn't have much deposits of gold, but they had them searching for gold. And so we know for sure, ladies, that this system was very, very, very oppressive. All right? The next thing, the resistance to encomienda. The indigenous people didn't just sit down there and said, listen, all right, work us, or play docile, as some historians would want us to believe, or how we would have, have this mindset. Because how some history book presented, it seems as if the Spaniards just came and they just sit down and they just allowed them to just work them. No, they fought. But the issue that the indigenous, the Spanish, one of the benefits that I wouldn't say a benefits, but one of the advantage that the indigenous people, the Spaniards had over the indigenous people was that the Spaniards had weapons, very high-tech weapons like guns. And so with that, they were able to control quite a lot of the indigenous groups. So they resisted. For sure, they would have resisted. So one, they formed bands of rebels and they ran away. Most of them ran away to the mountains. And so the indigenous people formed our first Maroons. The indigenous people were actually the first Maroons in the Caribbean. They were the first group to run to the mountains and hide into the mountains. They fought battles with them, especially the Kalinagos. The Kalinagos, listen, you realize that the Kalinagos are still here today? You still have remnants of the Kalinagos today. Because guess what? They didn't just give up. They fought with them. They fought serious battles with them. And then also the Eastern Caribbean, the topography of the Eastern Caribbean gave the Kalinagos a little edge because it's very mountainous. And so it was very, very difficult to find the Kalinagos in the mountains. And so they fought battles. The females also committed infanticide. Anyone want to tell us about infanticide? What is infanticide? When we talk about infanticide, what are we talking about?
Sir,
Go
is
ahead.
it that they killed their
Yes. Yes, you're correct, Rose and Sanchez. Yes, they killed their young baby. Infanticide. Some of them also, because they don't want their children to grow up under that system of encomienda. So they're going to kill their children. Another thing is that some of the indigenous people commit suicide. They kill themselves because obviously they had the belief that, listen, there's afterlife. So they go and meet with their ancestors. So they commit suicide. And one of the battles that the Taínos fought was on the island of Hispaniola, 1493, where they would have destroyed the forts that were built by the Spaniards. So we know for sure, ladies, that one, we know that Encomienda was a system of production. We know for sure that Encomienda was very oppressive. And we also know that the indigenous people didn't just sit back and said, all right, take over. We know that they would have resisted this system. It was so bad. It was so bad that two Catholic priests said, listen, this is so horrible. And the indigenous people, what they were going through, rumors had it, we don't know if it is true, that these priests were in love with Taino women, indigenous women. And so these priests were upset at the treatment of the indigenous people. And so they recommended the use of Africans instead of Indians. And so by 1720, the encomienda system was outlawed, right? It was abolished. So that was the first system of production that was used in the Caribbean, right? First main oppressive system. Any comments, ladies? What do you think about the pre-suggestions to use Africans instead of Indians?
I don't like it. I don't like it because what? They're not humans too. They don't feel pain. Okay, you feel bad about the Indians, so you have to use Africans.
Yes.
I don't like that idea at all. I don't.
All right, same here. But that is the history. They were the ones who recommended it. So that was the recommendation. Any other comments, ladies? Comment?
Sir, I thought it's crazy how they said switch the people, not the treatment.
Repeat?
They switched the people, not the treatment. And I think
Oh
that's
my
crazy.
Oh, yes, that is so true. That is so true. Switch the people, but not the treatment. That is a very powerful quote. That is a very powerful quote. Very powerful. But that is the reality, and that is the history. Ladies, essays like this, always know that you, when you're looking at these essays, especially on a topic on Encomienda, I'm going to bring some of these essays next class, examples, or essay types questions. Know how they would have responded. Know what the system was like. Don't go into the exam and make it seem as if you don't know what Encomienda is. There are two bargaining taking place. The truth is that some historians even say that Encomienda was slavery. They say it was the first type of slavery in the Caribbean. That is what some historians argue, but it is what it is. So when we meet tomorrow we are going to look at the plantation system, and on Monday we are going to look at African slavery and indentureship on Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday, you're going to take Tuesday and Wednesday to do your group work, meet in your group, and on Thursday, we are going to have the presentation. If you have any problem with the group work, message me from early. Don't wait until Thursday when you have class to say, sir, I never understand this question, or I didn't understand. Message me from early, ladies, so we can get it over with. All right? I believe that we're on good track in finishing the syllabus, because had we had face-to-face, we would have still be at the same topic if it was face-to-face. So we are good. My only problem is, I don't know if everybody's understanding. Now, based on the work that has been given thus far, I could gauge from it that I'm seeing that students are responding well to the objective of the lessons, right? It seems as if you are getting a grasp of the topics, right? But once we reach later down in the year, then we should have a better understanding of some of the issues that we're dealing with in the Caribbean. Now, ladies, that's it for us. See you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day, ladies.
Same to you, sir.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye-bye.